We've got some big news to take a look at here involving the New York Rangers trade deadline plan, as well as we'll take a look at some news about the JT Miller trade that is pretty interesting, as it seems like the Vancouver Canucks wanted a certain prospect on the New York Rangers, a certain defense prospect, that the Rangers ended up opting to not send it in this deal and obviously ended up giving up Victor Mancini instead of this certain player. So we'll take a look at both these things here, the kind of trade deadline plan, which it's a pretty big one on a certain target that the New York Rangers are kind of going after, as well as the JT Miller kind of update here as well. So we'll start off here with the JT Miller kind of trade little report here, talking about the certain player that the Canucks actually ended up wanting over Victor Mancini, apparently. So in this article from the Hockey News, they end up saying, quote, "The Vancouver Canucks reportedly had a young defenseman on their radar they wanted from the New York Rangers, but ultimately didn't get. The Rangers gave up Filipino, Victor Mancini, and a conditional 2025 first-round pick in exchange for JT Miller, Eric Brandstrom, and Jackson Dorrington. The Canucks actually wanted defenseman Drew Fortescue instead of Mancini, and there is a reason why Fortescue was not included in this deal." And obviously, Drew Fortescue is right now a current prospect playing for Boston College alongside one of the Rangers, or arguably the top kind of prospects in the Rangers system, Gabe Pro. They are, teammates there with Team USA, also with the World Juniors, where they, both ended up winning back-to-back gold medals, which is pretty cool. And they're also teammates for Boston College, one of the top teams in all of college hockey, and they definitely could go on a pretty good run and possibly win the whole thing. Potentially, it's definitely a possibility. But either way, it seems like the Canucks actually wanted Drew, who is a, more defensive defenseman, but has a little bit of an offensive game there, here and there. You definitely have seen some flashes. Pretty decent passer, can definitely make a good kind of outlet pass and breakout pass, which is quite nice. So I think has a decent kind of puck moving ability, good defensively, pretty decent size there, left-handed guy, definitely someone who projects to possibly end up being maybe a decent kind of second-pairing defenseman at the NHL level, and definitely could be a nice fit at some point in the future for the Rangers. And I definitely think is a player who you could argue you'd probably rather have maybe over someone like Victor Mancini. And, obviously Mancini definitely showed some flashes at the NHL level this season, but he is, a bit older than someone like a Fortescue. And obviously the Rangers are probably very high on Fortescue, as he, since being drafted as a third-round pick, has started to really look like a potential steal. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with him, but he's been a really good player for Boston College, so it definitely makes sense why the Rangers would obviously opt to kind of want to keep someone like Drew Fortescue over someone like Victor Mancini. And yes, you may say, well, Victor, is that right-handed guy, so maybe you'd rather that righty over the lefty, but I think with what the Rangers have right now, on the right side, I think it's all right to obviously, give up Victor over someone like Drew. And now a little more kind of news on this situation here, and they ended up saying in the article, quote, "The Canucks were still looking for a defenseman in a deal. Ryan Lindgren, a pending unrestricted free agent who has struggled like many Rangers this season, was in an earlier version of a swap that was rejected." Arthur Staple of The Athletic wrote, "The Rangers refused to include Drew Fortescue, their third-round pick in the 2023 draft, who is currently playing top pair minutes for Boston College, the number one team in NCAA hockey." And now let's take a look here at what the New York Rangers could possibly be looking to add at this upcoming trade deadline. And from this report, it ends up basically saying the Rangers are going to be targeting a new third-line center at this upcoming deadline that will be happening at the beginning of March. And it definitely makes a lot of sense. I mean, right now the Rangers are kind of rocking with Johnny Brodzinski with the new kind of trade that's happened, obviously, with JT Miller coming in. We've seen Zibanejad get a decent little run there on the right wing alongside Panarin and JT. So with that being, said, obviously there's not that kind of 1-2-3 punch of JT, Trocheck, and Zibanejad. Right now that 1-2-3 punch is JT, Trocheck, and Brodzinski, which, if we're being honest, isn't great. I think Sam Carrick as a fourth-line center is really good. He fits that role perfectly. He's that kind of gritty, tough guy who can be on that fourth line, play a solid two-way game, produce, here and there offensively. He's obviously not a great offensive guy, but can produce here and there offensively, just be a solid kind of fourth-line center. He fits that role quite well. And we've got two very solid centermen in Vincent Trocheck and JT Miller now as well. But then that third line kind of spot, definitely, there's a pretty big hole there, I would say. And if you're not going to put Zibanejad there and try him there, which, I think maybe it'd work, maybe it wouldn't, but I'm fine with seeing him kind of stick alongside JT Miller and Artem Panarin on that kind of top line right wing spot. That could definitely work out quite well. So really and truly, if you're going to go into the playoffs here, even if this team, may not be looking to add in some really good kind of third line center, adding in someone there who's just a better kind of third line center option than Johnny Brodzinski, maybe adds a little bit of depth there, I think would be a very good decision. Now, in my opinion, I don't think it should be necessarily a rental, although if it is a rental, hopefully it is someone with the intention that the Rangers have of possibly ending up, and possibly re-signing. And obviously, if they don't give up, too high tier of asset, then it is what it is if you're going after a rental. But I don't want to see the Rangers go out there and trade away, like a high tier prospect or a pretty high valuable pick for a rental guy who just they don't really kind of possibly think of ending up re-signing. So in my opinion, rentals are okay, but if you go up there for a third round pick and a really good prospect for a guy who you have no intention on re-signing and just kind of using for the rest of this season and the playoffs, it probably is not the best idea for where the Rangers are as a team right now. But let's take a look here at what the article had to say from the Hockey News regarding this kind of situation here with the Rangers possibly targeting a third line center at the upcoming trade deadline. So they end up saying the addition of JT Miller changes the Rangers' trade deadline strategy a little bit, with Mika Zibanejad playing on the wing alongside JT Miller and Artemi Panarin. The Rangers are in need of a third-line center. Peter Laviolette confirmed he has no plans to change the lineup as he's been happy with how things have worked out in Miller's 2 games with the team. Rangers president and general manager Chris Drury will reportedly prioritize acquiring a third-line center before the March 7th NHL trade deadline at the right price. And we've also got a quote here from Larry Brooks as he ends up saying, "I think the Rangers are going to be looking for a third-line center, and there are probably some available. But what's the cost? I don't think they're going to do very many rental deals in order to try and get into the 8th place," Larry Brooks of the New York Post said. And that's what I've been saying. Don't go out there and go big for a rental. If it's, a later round pick and Zach Jones, let's say, then okay, that's one thing, but don't go out there and make it a kind of, big kind of draft pick, a valuable one, and a good prospect like even Adam Sikora or Bryce McConnell-Barker, one of those kind of guys. Don't go out there and do something like that unless you really have a big intention on re-signing that certain player, which I don't think is the worst idea if you really do think you can re-sign them and you really want to. But obviously, at the end of the day, if they are going to be expiring contract with where this team is at right now, spending a lot of high kind of valuable assets, whether it is picture prospects, is not the right idea in my opinion. So definitely in the comment section down below, give me your thoughts, and other Rangers fans, your thoughts on what you think the Rangers should do regarding this third line center spot for this upcoming trade deadline. Personally, I think this team really should go out there and trying to address that spot, especially if they're going to keep Mika Zibanejad up on that right wing spot long term. I don't think it should be a big piece they're going after that third line center spot, but just something decent to kind of just provide some depth there and really just kind of add some talent there over someone like Johnny Brodzinski, who I think is better suited in more of a depth role for this team. And also definitely comment down below your thoughts on the New York Rangers pretty much deciding to keep Drew Fortescue, the prospect, over someone like Victor Mancini. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.